What's up guys, Piper33 here. Today I want to go ahead and talk about the state of the division and what could possibly make things better for the game down the road. Now the main thing that I would like to address in this video is the changes that Massive Entertainment has been making to the game and how it is affecting each category of players. Now if you've been playing the game at all, you'll have noticed that the game is pretty grindy, like most RPGs. But for those of you who are getting into things a bit later, or those who aren't playing the game on a daily or even every other day basis, you'll have noticed a huge difference between yourselves and those who have been playing the game since day one and who hit level 30 in the first day or two. For those who haven't been playing the game since day one, Phoenix credits, which are the main currency to get higher end gear in the division, were dropping at a significantly higher rate back then. Now we're talking somewhere between 10 and 30 plus credits per boss kill. This allowed for higher end items to be acquired significantly quicker for those who hit the end game quicker than the others, as Massive quickly nerfed the drop rate on the Phoenix credits down to 1 or 2 per boss kill. Well, for those who hadn't hit the end game at that point, the grind only became harder in order to get end game gear, really to do anything, mainly survive in the dark zone, which is a whole nother problem that we're going to get to in a minute. Now at that time, there really wasn't a whole lot to do other than go into the dark zone and get better gear. Now let's move time forward a little bit. We find players that are exploiting the game in order to farm materials for crafting and farming Phoenix credits from bosses due to the nerf to those Phoenix credits from Massive. Now at the time, the dark zone was a bit stale, and for those who fell behind in the first Phoenix credit nerf, they were tempted to go out and find an easier way of getting better gear. Either that or go into the dark zone and get hammered by those who already had the really good gear. At that point, one could kill a boss over and over and over again in the PvE world, get Phoenix credits, go buy a crafting blueprint, and then craft an item over and over and over again until you got your perfect roll. Crafting at this point literally was the best option to get the best gear. This, however, is not what Massive wanted to happen. At this point, they wanted players to be getting into the dark zone in order to square off with other players for the best loot in the game. Problem with that is, you still have the people in the dark zone that have that better gear who will steamroll you, so you have no chance at that better gear. So yet another nerf. Crafting materials take more to upgrade into better crafting materials at this point. Essentially, making those high-end items are now going to be costing you more in order to craft them. And for those who have been playing since day one and play on a daily basis, most of those people already have a lot of crafting materials because they have so much of the extra stuff that they don't need. While others who don't play it on a daily basis are now once again getting left in the dust, having to grind more and more in order to get those crafting materials, which of course then makes getting a higher gear score even harder and getting to the end game content just that much further out of reach. Now, this may not sound like it's such a big deal, and really all that the people who got lagged behind are going to have to do are doing daily missions and really going into the dark zone, killing bosses over and over again in order to get those Phoenix credits. Really, it's just going to be extending the time that they have to play, whereas the other ones who have been playing since day one are now in their own category. All of them will still have all of their high-end gear, plenty of materials to make more of those high-end gear, so no big deal, right? I mean, really, why does that matter? Well, here's why. Now, while one could potentially do dailies and get enough Phoenix credits to buy some blueprints, get a better item, and then turn around and do that again in order to get the really good stuff, you're headed into the dark zone, and again, that's its own mess, which again, we're going to be talking about in just a minute. Getting enough Phoenix credits to get better gear outside the dark zone, a player has to do daily and weekly missions. These include killing a certain amount of a specific type of bad guy, or running a specific mission, etc, etc. Now the downside to doing that is that you're stuck doing this and spending a lot of time doing that, and then after that, you're having to run into the dark zone to finally get that better gear. Now, Massive and Ubisoft have been touting the dark zone as the place to get better loot at the risk of being taken down by the tougher NPCs that are there and other players. I mean, it sounds easy enough. Go in, kill some baddies, find a boss, take him down, get better gear or drop, get that to a helicopter, and put the gear on it for extraction. Well, even that's a pretty long list of things that you're going to have to do in order to get some better gear, and that's just in the dark zone. Now let's add into that equation other players. Someone sees that you get some gear and decides to take a gamble on your gear. Now, with named enemies at level 30 or more always dropping at least one high-end item, they're bound to get something that's worth it to them. Even if the high-end item isn't an upgrade for them, they're going to be getting high-end crafting materials, and as we have already covered with the second nerf to getting geared, the crafting system is now harder to actually craft anything because it costs so many materials. Now you may be thinking this wouldn't happen too much since the upper level tier players will be in harder areas of the Dark Zone, as there are no upgrades to their gear in the easier areas of the Dark Zone. And with the addition of Dark Zone gear score tiers, you wouldn't have to worry about getting rolled on by one or more rogue agents with gear score that are much higher than yours. Well, Massive decided to leave the top tier of the Dark Zone at 160 plus gear score, which is a gear score that's not all that hard to hit. If you've hit level 30 and grinded out a good starter set of endgame gear, talking purples and maybe one high-end gear or two, that's going to leave you with a gear score of at least 160. You move into the Dark Zone to attempt to get that better gear. Problem there is that you're going to be in the Dark Zone with other agents who have possibly a gear score of 200 to 240. And that's the kind of gear that would allow them to stand there and laugh while you empty all of your bullets into them, and then flick you against a wall with ease and watch you bleed out on the concrete, which very well could happen at any time and at their whim. I've seen all too often one of the following scenarios happen while in the Dark Zone. 1. Overpowered mobile rogues. Now this is where one or more agents who are sitting at a gear score of 200 plus who decided that they'd go have a little fun against other players in the easier areas of the Dark Zone. They then camp out at boss areas and kill players who come to investigate the area. These rogues or rogue groups then migrate to areas when they see someone calling in an extraction and then take them out before they can get their gear on the chopper. Or 2. Overpowered rogue camps. What these are camps that are generally found at the entrances to the Dark Zone. Players will get to the Dark Zone in an area where they'd like to be able to take down NPCs with general efficiency, but are greeted at the door by these bandits who are only looking to kill them. Upon entering, the camp mows the player down that just entered, who then loses some experience in the Dark Zone and then has to try again. This happens on attempts to exit the Dark Zone as well. Regardless of the scenario that you end up in, you're putting in time to where you get nothing back, and in some cases, actually losing more experience in the Dark Zone than you had when you went in for the first time, and with no loot to boot, which then again slows that tedious grind for you as a player even more. All because you didn't play the game enough at the beginning or chose not to exploit the game to play it as it was intended. It's a frustrating situation for anyone that is looking to pick up the Division, and it calls for a change. Personally, I feel apart from the terrible incursion that was put in, the Dark Zone really is the biggest thing that needs to change. I feel like it needs to be changed to either feel like more of a survival area in the likes of DayZ or H1Z1, or change it completely to give us some general PvP modes where you can feel like your gear matters and at least have the ability to stand up against the players who have an edge on you because they've put in the time. The problem with the former is that the game is an RPG shooter. The survival aspect is run by numbers, and for the most part, players are just as much as bullet sponges as the NPCs in the Dark Zone. I think this system would have to change a little bit, maybe too dramatically in that aspect. Your guns and your armor would perform differently in each area, and that's not something that most players would want. Now, on the other end, they can make the change to the entire game, which would then cost a significant amount of time to Massive and change the game from feeling like an RPG to more like a survival shooter, and Massive wouldn't really want to be doing one or the other, or both. Now, the other solution would be to give the Dark Zone traditional PvP modes, things like Team Deathmatch or Capture the Flag and the like. This would allow players' gear score to matter a little bit less, much like how Destiny kind of does things. This would allow for gun balance for gun types for these modes, and even the playing field for everyone. Of course, with that, there would also need to be modes where your gear does matter, and entering there would put your hard-earned gear and your skills up against everyone else, and again, much like Destiny does with the Iron Banner. I don't necessarily think there should be rewards here as much as just having fun. Obviously, there definitely is room there for receiving Phoenix credits at the end of a match, or maybe crafting items or something like that. Now, the downside to what this would bring is where could you fit in such game types into the narrative of the world of the Division? Why would you have two teams of agents going against each other? Where does this fit into the diseased, unlawful area of the Dark Zone? Nothing really comes to mind immediately for me, but surely Massive would be able to keep the feel of the Division while still being able to work in some of those game modes into the Dark Zone. That's all I have on the state of the game for today. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below on what you think could help fix the Division gameplay issues. What do you think of the Dark Zone, and how about that grind on getting geared up for the end game, including the incursions and the other things coming down the road with the DLC? Thank you guys very much for watching. Make sure to leave a comment, a rating, subscribe if you guys haven't. Make sure that you always pay the piper, and we will see you in the next one.
I do plan on playing Overwatch with the open beta in May, because quite frankly, it looks friggin' awesome to play and super fun to play. And that said, I spent many hours with Battleborn there this last week, and while it had a few things that I dislike, it's been an extremely enjoyable experience all around. Between a single-player campaign that you can play with friends via online co-op, various multiplayer, PvP modes, and 25 different Battleborn characters